Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Welcome back to Houselights, specifically the House of Stone, as we plod through his biopics of the 1990s and beyond. And we stop here in 1995 to watch the very long film known as Nixon, which is about, I'm going to, spoilers here, it's about Richard Milhous Nixon, one of the presidents of the United States, known for a few things in particular. I am one of your hosts. I am President John Mills. I am joined by my National Security Advisor and Secretary of State, Tristan Riddell, and my shadowy CIA handler, Darren Moser. Gentlemen, let's dig in to the director's cut of Nixon, a movie starring Anthony Hopkins in some uncanny valley between makeup and parody? ? Let's just get going here. I'm all my cards out on the table. I'll be making horrible attempts at humor through this just to keep myself awake, because this movie, well, let's just kick it off. Let's just go. Let's just hug the cactus, as they say. Gentlemen, this is my first time seeing it. Who else's first time seeing it?
I think all of us.
All three of us. This is our first time seeing it, right?
Seeing it, and this movie was 3.5 hours long. It felt longer than the Cold War. That was the worst Kissinger impression ever. That's what I thought I could do it. It's one of those.
I knew who you were going for, and thus it was a great interpretation.
Like, that's one of those when
we
you're
all
like,
know that
I can do that. I can do that, and then you test it out, and you're like, no, you can't.
I will say at the very least, Paul Sorvino's makeup was very successful in terms of making him look like Kissinger. So kudos to everybody. So this is this is our first time seeing it, and we're going to plod right into it. We've already talked about the running time. Tristan, as is typical, I love to ask you first questions about editing and everything like that. How much more would you have added to Nixon's runtime for the ultimate cut? The final cut of Nixon should be 5.5 hours. Are we talking Lord of the Rings territory here?
Oh my gosh. Like, I can't imagine that there's anything on the cutting room floor with this. Like, there's so many long movies out there that are fantastic. Like there's like 10 Commandments, Lawrence of Arabia, Lord of the Rings. I know none of the Harry Potter movies, I think, breach the 3-hour mark, but they're long. They get close. Anyway, it's just like there's tons.
They split the last one into 2 movies. It could have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing. It's just like, so I'm not saying like movies can't be long. There's tons of great long movies, but this movie, you felt every single scene, almost every scene you're in. You're like, man, are we still here? We're still having this conversation. Like, your body forces your mind to turn off. Like, I did not have my phone near me. I never watch movies with my phone. I don't have any other distractions when I watch movies. I sit down and that's what I'm doing. And I had to remind myself to pay attention, because I just started to gloss over because of how it's just this movie is about everything and about nothing at the same time.
Yeah, I'll cop to it. Darren, I, like Tristan, hit something of a fugue state during this film where I was kind of like, where am I? Does time exist? I miss JFK with its bold editing and tremendous choices in how to make scenes flow and all of those sorts of things. I'm presuming we're 3 for 3 here, or are you going to be our dark horse candidate, come racing in and say, guys, you are nuts. You're out of your mind. This is a movie that sings. It couldn't be edited any more sharply.
No, I will not be saying any of those words in any particular order. Yeah, it made me rethink our let's pick the director's cut stance, because dear God, this was a long movie. And yeah, I'm not going to fall on my sword and watch the director's cut or the theatrical cut to see the difference, because I don't care enough to know what was added in or not added in. But yeah. So, but runtime aside, well cast movie. I mean, I love watching mid-90s movies because it's like, oh, there's that guy. Oh, there's that guy. I mean, you got James Woods, You got, David Hyde Pierce is popping up, Saul Rubinek, all sorts of awesome actors.
We got
are coming out of
Chakotay
the
for a
woodwork,
line.
and they're just, I don't know who they are historically. Exactly. And that's like prime Voyager time right there. He's right there. So yeah, I did enjoy the ensemble immensely. Like it was a well cast movie. And to your point on Nixon, on Anthony Hopkins, yeah, I felt it's interesting because I felt he blended into the role, but I think a part of that is it's 1995. Every recent movie I've seen of Anthony Hopkins, he's old Anthony Hopkins, and this is so long ago that he looks like a different person because it's several decades. So he has that going for it.
Well, I agree with you. I think that there is some great casting here. There's a little tidbit floating out there. Before I say this, I just want to say J.T. Walsh has always been one of my favorite character actors. God rest his soul. And seeing him in a movie, I was like, oh, yes, cool. Like I haven't seen J.T. Walsh in something in a while, obviously. And I would like to see him again. I was like, yeah, all right. Mark of quality right there is J.T. Walsh in your film. I thought that there were a couple of performances that stood out. I don't think Sorvino really stood out as Kissinger, but I thought Woods as H.R. Haldeman was a standout performance.
Woods stole every scene he was in. I couldn't take my eyes off him. It was so good. What's
interesting is that part was originally supposed to go to Ed Harris, who instead played Howard Hunt.
Which is a tiny role. Like a
minuscule
drop in
role.
The bucket.
So do you think that Ed Harris hates James Woods to this day? Or do you think that Ed Harris is like, well, I don't have the stink of this movie on me because people barely remember I'm in it? Anyway, just throw that out there.
He doesn't disown it like he does The Abyss. So that's probably, at least going for
Odd choice, Mr. Harris. I'm going to say you might want to reevaluate these things here. Although maybe that's a testament to what a jerk James Cameron is. I don't know. But we also have all of this great talent. We have a biopic that is absolutely, Stone has free reign at this point. He's had the critical success of JFK. He's had the critical and relative critical and commercial success of The Doors. He's got a lot of heat on him. I think Natural Born Killers came out in 94. Didn't Natural Born Killers came out before this, right? I think, but it's right around this time in the 90s. And so he's got a lot of swagger. Like he's relatively untouchable at this point. If somebody's going to get away with making a Nixon film, it's almost like at this point in his career, this is the logical choice. This is who you're going to come to.
Yeah, and Natural Born Killers was the year before in 94. So
nice. And I have my own problems with that movie, but we're not talking about that one.
He's like making 3 movies a year, like not directing all of them, but he is cranking these things out.
Yeah, you got to kind of wonder what energy drinks he was taking at the time because he didn't seem to sleep a whole lot. But I think that, you have here all of the ingredients for what we would expect to wind up being a very special sort of thing. But what I noted about it, and Tristan, I'll throw this over to you, is this is our first biopic where like it's really like The Doors is about Jim Morrison and The Doors. While it's very much focused on Morrison, there's at least lip service to the other guys going on there. JFK is about somebody other than JFK and all of the people that it touched and everything. But Nixon is very much laser focused on Hopkins as Nixon. Do you think that is one of the problems, is that Stone isn't used to something that's straightforward? Like with The Doors, he had something a little more experimental, a little weirder, a little looser, a little more music video. He had other characters he could rely on, but this is like 3.5 hours of Hopkins, basically. Do you think this is just a structure that Stone's out of his element?
Absolutely. I think that's a very solid question. And I think that one of the, like you kind of hit it on the head there where, with The Doors, we have like one flashback where Morrison is a young kid, and then like kind of where he rejects, then we go to college where he rejects his college education to go start a band. That's an important part. You got to start a band. And with JFK, it wasn't really about JFK. It was about his assassination, and we follow the prosecutor. And so you follow him around that event. Like we don't see Kevin Costner's character as a kid and how he grew up and issues he has with his parents and with his mother and everything like that. It's just about him during that time and his family life, combating the assassination of JFK and how to prosecute. And with Nixon, he tries to do a typical biopic, but in a non-linear fashion. And normally I really like non-linear movies. I like things that jump around and mix things up and go back and forth. With this one, I really feel like you didn't need all of that backstory jumbled up, because Nixon had such a complex political career with ups and downs, and that's was covering a vast amount of time, that it's almost impossible to cover all of it. And I made that joke earlier on about how Stone, we have 3.5 hours of movie, but yet I'm really surprised on what he left out. Like, what on earth could he put in there? But as I'm watching it, I feel like I'm watching an incomplete story. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to focus on. Like, am I supposed to focus on the Watergate scandal? Am I supposed to focus how he has mommy issues? Am I supposed to focus on his on his own character issues, like his own insecurities and his antisocial behavior, which is well documented? Am I supposed to focus on his relationship with the CIA? Not just Watergate, but his illegal wiretapping, Cambodia, Vietnam. There's just so much. Like, Nixon was an incredibly complex man, and Stone tried to craft an incredibly complex narrative, but yet you don't gain anything from it. And I think that's the biggest problem that I have with it. I feel like the Watergate scandal and everything that came about it, the 18 and a half minutes tapes, Congress going against him, the illegal wiretapping, abuse of power. I feel like if they just focused on that, like those couple of years, we would have gotten to know everything we needed to know about Nixon. And we didn't need any of the flashbacks. We didn't need to go back to when he was a kid. We didn't need any of that extra stuff. And I know this is me writing the movie and saying like, oh, I wish this is the movie we had. That's not the movie we got. But as I'm watching it, I'm just like, this is not what we needed. This is not what the movie Nixon needed. You use all the same people, use all the same characters, use all the same actors, get the same editor, producers, everything. Even Stone, just keep the director, but just focus on one event and explore how that man reacts to that one event and the world crumbling down on him. And we do see that, but it's so bombarded by dozens of other things that you don't know what to focus on.
I would say there's a decent 90-minute movie somewhere in this 3.5 hours, basically. And that's not a slight. I mean, it's like you could have told this story much more quickly and had more ups and downs and those sorts of things. But Darren, do you think that Stone is too aware at this point of criticisms of historical inaccuracy? Because this is the first one in the ones that we're watching where at the very front of the movie, a title card comes up and is like, I swear, guys, you got to believe me. This is like totes true. I filled in a couple of gaps, but promises. I swear I didn't lie this time. Like, did you get that vibe? I know those weren't the exact words, but I'm pretty close.
No, I think totes was in there for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so as you guys were chatting, it made me kind of coalesce two thoughts about this movie. One is, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about Nixon. I'm shotgunned with his past, his political career, his personal life, and his and all this stuff. So it's like I'm not led on a path at all. It's like a choose your own adventure, decide for yourself. And so I'm like, okay, I don't like the parts where, his infant brother's screaming. That makes me feel sad. But then he's like a jerk to his wife.
I'm sorry. I have to interrupt.
No.
That scene was so distressing. Like I had to hit the 10-second skip on my Apple TV. Like, I was physically distressed from that scene. Like, as a father, I was like, oh, that's like the most distressed from a movie I've been in a long time, and it's like
a
15 seconds
calling
from
out
one
for
movie.
their father to make it stop. I
No.
could not wait for that scene to be over.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry,
But
I had to mention that. But please continue.
I felt this. Thank you for calling that out, because I felt the same way. So I don't know how I'm meant to feel for Nixon, and I get at a point as a director you can kind of leave things up to your audience's interpretation, but also as a director, your goal or your drive should be to lead on a story journey with something to be presented. And so it's like, I feel like I came into the movie with what little I knew about Nixon and Watergate and all that, but I didn't really learn anything. Like, it was just so much there. And at the end, I'm just like, it kind of went in one ear and out the other. Honestly, like it flowed right through me. And I'm like, I kind of have the same feeling I did about Nixon as I did before. Like, that's about it.
You know, I think that something else that speaks to Stone's challenge in trying to handle this, he very much, I remember him taking heat at the time, because I'm older than you two, and I can remember some of the discussion going around where some of the critics were saying that they didn't, I'm paraphrasing here, but they didn't like the fact that they tried to humanize Nixon. Nixon is like a larger than life Dracula villain to a certain segment of the population. Like George Lucas, I don't know how many times, has referred to the emperor as Richard M. Nixon. And I'm like, okay, wow, that is something. Like that is, the embodiment of evil was Richard Nixon. And it's like, wow, that's what he means to some people. And so it feels almost like Stone was working so hard to make him understandable without making him relatable. And as a result, you have to like pick a lane sort of thing, or find a way to make those things synthesize. And I think that if it seems to me, and Tristan, I don't know how you would feel about this, but 95 is, roughly 20 years after. So it's been 20 years. People have the benefit of perspective. Not all of the records about everything were unsealed and all of that stuff. And there were still, people with still definite impressions and everything like that. Do you think that this is a movie where Stone's ambition made him make it 10 years before it should have been done? Do you think that 10 more years would have given Stone the opportunity to find the way he wanted to tell this story?
That's an interesting question. I feel like he probably wouldn't have gotten the heat that he got when it came out, because it came out like right when Nixon died, or like right before, mm-hmm. like almost right around the time, because like the movie was completed and then Nixon died, and then they inserted funeral footage like right before the movie was released. And this movie was really divisive with people because Nixon was still alive. Like he still had social circles. I think a member of the Disney family was so pissed off that this was released under a Disney banner that she formally apologized to the Nixon family on behalf of the Disney family, because she felt like it portrayed Nixon in such a negative light. And so, like when, like Nixon scandal was obviously pre-Clinton scandal, pre-Trump's 15,000 scandals. And it was like, looking back on it through a 2024 lens, it's almost adorable, that like this, almost split the country in half, like because of everything that we have lived with in the 90s, 2000s and 2010s and 2020s with political intrigue and illegal
this
activity.
Wouldn't even tinge the needle.
Nowadays. This wouldn't even make a week in our 24-hour news cycle. And it's crazy.
True.
It's crazy. No, I'm like, people who are history buffs who realize everything that Nixon did positively as well as negatively know that this isn't a trifle. Like he's this isn't something that should be, especially the abuse of power. When you look at what he did in abusing his power and like utilizing the FBI and the CIA and the IRS as, against his own political opponents, and, creating the plumbers unit and trying to obstruct justice with the CIA and, straight up intimidation against his critics and campaign finance violations, and most likely perjured himself, contempt of Congress, like all this stuff, like this, it sounds horrible and it is horrible, but we are so desensitized in 2024 to political scandal that if he made it today, I think maybe not today. You said 10 years later. Like if you made it 10 years later, it would not have made the splash that it did. Like people wouldn't have been pissed off as he did. So like as I'm talking this and I'm kind of rambling now, I feel like it's probably almost advantageous to him that he released it when he did, even if it's an inferior film than if he did it 10 years later. It at least got people talking about it because it pissed off so many people.
Well, that's a fair point. There used to be, there's no such thing as bad press. There's just press, so if people are talking about your film, I mean, he had the controversy with Natural Born Killers the year before, which was a terribly controversial film and weird thing that maybe we should all cover at some point. But what's even crazier, just to contextualize, you're talking about abuses of power, is very shortly after the Watergate scandal, Project MK Ultra was rolled out, and the CIA talked about it openly, and it was like, not many people even talk about that. And it's like, that's the type of like sort of like scandalous cover that the coverage of Watergate gave, is like MK Ultra was like, is not great stuff, folks. And like that's the sort of thing where it's like certain things grow so large in our cultural consciousness that they just sort of exist there. And you were talking about the social circles and everything. The Simpsons would even make playful Nixon jokes. And Futurama made endless Nixon jokes, but The Simpsons even had him on the jury of the damned before he died. And I'm not dead yet. In fact, I just wrote an article for Redbook. Like it's one of those things where he wrote a number of books after his resignation, all of those sorts of things. And it's just us having this conversation. I feel like Darren, are we off the track here? Like, it feels like there's even more stuff that Stone mysteriously just walks away from. And he's a guy that the movie we just watched, JFK, he didn't shy away from all of the conspiracy stuff or the cover-ups or the layers within layers or circles within circles.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe it could have been like, okay, here's the 20 big things of Nixon's life, and I only have time to talk about 6 of them. And he just picked the wrong 6 or the wrong combination. Like it could have been as simple as that. I think at its core, this was my other main point, besides the feeling about Nixon, is I felt as an audience member that I was kept at arm's length because there's nothing internal about Nixon. I felt every frame of Nixon I got was a on stage, on show presentation Nixon. Even the moments when he's being vulnerable with his wife or his coworkers, or even those, I never felt like the movie gave an outlet for Nixon to communicate to me as an audience member, as a viewer, what was really going on internally. So everything is external. And so you're kind of just along for the ride. You might as well be in the passenger seat as one of his cabinet members for as much as, and that's maybe why we connect with those characters as much, because we're in the same boat. So that's just, I think as a core, and I don't have the solution on how you would fix that, but something I've seen movies do that where you can get inside the head of a guy and convey, if you're doing tapes or journals or something, because like when he starts to talk about himself in the third person a lot, he's like, well, Nixon would never say that, or like, oh, the president would never do that. And I'm like, okay, like it's so odd. That lens we were given it wasn't even a lens into this man. It was a lens into his world. So it wasn't deep enough. But
see, I think you're on the track though, because I'll take a swing at restructuring it. It should be done, in all honesty, the same way that Citizen Kane is, where you have different people talking about being next to Nixon, and you see Nixon, but Nixon is always who the main, whoever the main character of that arc of the story is. As they're flashing back, you see Nixon from their perspective. I think that would even open it up and make it even more relatable, because there's an attempt to make him, his daughter comes up and says, show the world what a sweet and loving man you can be. And it's like, I never saw him sweet and loving with his family. What the hell are you talking about?
Or even with his mother, he talks about his mother, but I never felt like I was in the mother's perspective. It was always his perspective of his mother, of him.
Right. Yes, which is really weird.
Filmmakers, speaking of the mother, filmmakers who deal with real people love tying something onto one aspect of their past, and that's it. And Stone was just like, the mother. This is why Nixon is the way he is.
They even
His
have
mother.
Kissinger say it in the end. He says, like, if only that man, I'm not doing the impersonation.
If only that,
He's
that
like,
man
yeah, he's
had
like, but if
some
only
love
that
in his
man had
life.
been loved, he would have been a power. And I'm like, are you looking right at the camera when you say that? Because that's what it feels like.
Yeah, and
Somebody
also
needs to tell you the point of this movie, so it might as well be me.
that's the joke. No, sorry, we're going into what's his name from Simpsons.
He
like
was
Yes,
moving from
Rainier
topic to
Wolfcastle.
topic.
Yeah.
It was really quite hypnotic.
no, like, okay, so like, and also like when he meets his future wife for the first time, and then all of a sudden we see this dissolve to his mother and then a quick dissolve back, and I'm like, subtle, Stone, real subtle.
He didn't seem
And-
to hit the nail quite on the head right there, did he? Nah.
And just like, it's like with a far superior biopic, Social Network, you know, Fincher and God, the writer, I'm blanking on his name.
Oh, Sorkin.
Sorkin. Jeez, why could I couldn't. Yeah. Fincher and Sorkin, they're just like, oh, it's because he was dumped by a girl. That's
Right.
the entire reason why
Right.
he made Facebook. And you're like, Nixon, you know, like he just wanted to be loved by his mother, who talked like she was reading the New King James Bible. You know, like it just.
Yeah, the these and thous were a little much. I mean, I don't know Quaker society, but I was like, okay.
It seems like a stretch. It seems a little bit like a stretch, but I
Even
don't
it's-
know. I wasn't there.
But that's the thing, though, that even if it was accurate, don't do it, because it's
Right.
so distracting that it takes you out of the moment where you're like, wait, do people do that? And you want to pause it and Google it and see if that's actually accurate. But it's just like, it's one of those things where it's filmmakers just like go on one thing, and like maybe one person they interviewed or even two people they said, they're like, oh yeah, he had a weird relationship with his mom or something like that. And you're like, boom, that's it. Like, that's why he resigned from the presidency, his mom. And you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, and also on top of that, okay, I know,
Please.
I keep going. But one thing that
you
was
don't have
really
to put
bugged
V's
me,
up when you give your interpretation, Tristan.
the two-
captioning is now reading that Darren is putting up the two victory signs with his hands, much in the style of Nixon.
For those not watching this audio format.
oh my God, look at that guy with his haircut. Oh, that's crazy. So it was the resignation. I mean, that's huge. That is a monumental piece of American history. Like he was the first president to resign from office in disgrace. And I felt like, okay, this is going to be like a big section of the movie. I was like, this is going to be like the last act of like this, like of a 3-act movie, even though it wasn't 3 acts, it was more. But like, this is going to be the last act of the movie. Is going to be about like them telling him he needs to resign, and then him saying no, but then figuring out. And then we go from you need to resign, and he goes no, and then he gives the speech, and you're like, whoa, we're like, we have 3.5 hours to talk about Nixon, and we're just glossing over that. We're glossing over the end of it.
Yeah.
Really?
Maybe he felt the 2 hours and 45 minutes. He said, whoa, I got to wrap this up.
That's kind of what it felt like.
Yeah. I still, I'm glomming onto the idea of like who he was to different people, because that whole bit of him going to the Lincoln Memorial is true. That actually happened. And I mean, his perspective on how it went down is different than the protesters' perspective on how it went down. But they, in fact, had a very calm discussion with each other. Like, they didn't.
That's probably one of the best scenes of the movie. Like,
And-
the tension, like not tension, not an evil tension, but like it's like a kid caught outside after curfew, and you're like, where is his Secret Service? And he is like surrounded, and then they just have a conversation. I love that scene.
It's a great scene, and it speaks to the idea that Stone just never really got it. Like, I mean, Darren, you said earlier, it's, oh my gosh, it's like he was releasing 2 or 3 movies a year. Maybe if he just spent another year in development with this,
right?
Like slow down.
Not directing.
It's okay.
It's like executive producing at least 3 movies every year for like the 90s. Like the man was a powerhouse.
Right. But slow it down for a year and say, you know what, this is one that, might take a little bit longer, or even, I know that even back then it was tough, but do what Titanic did. Let's say Nixon, Nixon passes right before the film is going to be coming out. Don't quickly edit his funeral in. Say, you know what, we're going to delay release for 6 months.
Give it 6
respect
months.
For his family, and all of these sorts of things.
It's going to be a 6 months better picture because of it.
And then, yeah, exactly. And spend that 6 months just coming back and refining it and finding out how to put the threads together in editing. But it feels like, Stone is just rushing to get on to his next project. And it's painful because I think actually with these 3 movies that you look at, The Doors feels like a movie that doesn't get all of Stone's attention because he's moving on to JFK. And I think that the inverse happens where Nixon doesn't get enough attention because he was paying too much attention to Natural Born Killers, which, as I call it to mind, has a lot of the really, for all of the film's flaws, a lot of the camera work and the editing and the way that's put together feels much more like the guy that's in the groove that he finds with the better parts of The Doors, everything in JFK, and then Natural Born Killers feel of the same spirit. And then Nixon is the one where it's like it's just too linear, just sort of he just runs out of steam. And Tristan, what do you? In terms of the editing here, do you see anywhere for him to go back and treat it like JFK? Would that have saved it in some way to find a way to compress and expand time as necessary and treat it a little more like putty?
Well, I feel like I feel like I've kind of made my thoughts known on that, where I think this movie might be able to be saved by the edit, but I don't know what exists and what doesn't, where I feel like just ditch all the flashbacks, or at least like 90% of the flashbacks, and focus on the White House. Like have it all take place in the White House. Like this movie would have made a great stage play, where, like you have the Oval Office as the main set, and you can go to the West Wing, you can go to, the private residence and everything like that, but like keep it within the White House. And it's conversation based. It's completely conversation based. It doesn't rely on itself of, like fast cutting and going back and forth in time and going back in time when you're back in time and changing colors and changing film stock and everything like that. Like where it worked with JFK because you have one point that it's focusing on. With JFK, right. It's just like, this is it. The gunshot. What are we going to do? How are we going to figure this out? Who do we need to talk to? It's all about that. And so everybody's talking about that. It doesn't matter how far out onto the wings you get, how on the raggedy edge, it doesn't matter because it's all related back to that. Like with what Darren was talking about, how it just kind of washes over you in one ear and out the other, because you don't know what to focus on. You don't know what they're talking about. Like, are we talking about Bay of Pigs, or are we talking about the CIA screwing up? Are we talking about the FBI wiretaps? Are we talking about Kennedy stealing the election? Are we talking about, like how much he wants to sleep with his mother? Like, what is it? Like we don't know.
Darren, this is shot again by Robert Richardson, who we sang the praises of in the previous 2 movies we were looking at. And he shoots this film. And I'm going to be completely honest that I need to know what you thought. Does this look like what you expect a Robert Richardson film to look like? Is there impressive photography in this? Or is it like, is there any different vibe? Did you walk away with it feeling like you would watch something shot by the same guy that just shot The Doors and JFK?
It's definitely a lot tamer. Probably a lot of that just has to do with the subject matter. I still think the Lincoln Memorial scene is probably the most engaging of shots. The way he like looks over his shoulder and then like people kind of come out of nowhere. Like he feels like he's all alone, but he's not. And it's just very well constructed. And then we spent a lot of time, in the fireplace room. I will say this, like if this movie was made 10 years later, you wouldn't be able to see any of it because we would have entered the era of natural lighting and it would have been dark as all get out. But no, we're still in 95. We still put a fake key light in every room and I don't care because I want to be able to see my movie and enjoy, even if he's lit by firelight, I want to be able to tell where Nixon is doing. He's fumbling with the tape deck.
I'm glad you mentioned the firelight. I mean, I have some thoughts about it, but what do you think Stone was trying to say by showing him in a room with a roaring fire and the AC cranked up and blowing on him?
He's trying to say, I'll answer for me. I think he's trying to say he is tempted to throw the tapes in the fire. It's very clear. Like, why would you have a fire when you're listening to confidential tapes with the AC on? It's not for the weather. It's because you might just put those tapes in the flame. That's how it seemed like to me.
You have the same read, Tristan?
No, I didn't actually read that at all. I'm not saying that's wrong at all. I'm not saying that's wrong at all, but I didn't gather that. To me, it felt like one of those idiosyncrasies that you hear about or read about that Stone wanted to include. That's what I thought of first. It's just kind of like Reagan and jelly beans, where, like, oh, Nixon loved, like sitting next to a fire, but he hated the heat, or something like that. That's what I took it as. So I didn't even read into it except like, oh, maybe somebody said he did that.
See, I took it. And the thing is, this speaks to some of the better aspects of the film. Like there's still Oliver Stone at work here. There's still Robert Richardson here. There's still people here who we know how to technically make incredible art. And I took those moments where they showed the fire going and Darren, totally hear what you're saying. I agree. Tristan, hear what you're saying. And I agree with that as well. But my read that I took into it was that Nixon was a person who didn't have any gray area. He existed between extremes. He was either too hot or too cold, and he couldn't figure out how to be just warm.
I like that take.
But the thing is, I'm glad we got to that because that's one of those things where even in a movie where we don't enjoy, when you have skilled craftspeople working on it, you can still catch on to certain things and say, oh, well, okay, that's interesting. And then three people can walk away with different reads and all of us can see what the other person is saying. Now, I'll use that to go into the music, which we have John Williams coming back. And I have some observations about the music. But no, you know what? I'm glad you called that out because what I took was I will most likely revisit this soundtrack and then do some cue matching with episode 3. But I think again, because of Lucas constantly referring to the Emperor as Richard Nixon, there are moments when he's giving a speech or something like there was one specific moment where the music sounded like a tamer version of the music when the Emperor assumes power in episode 3. And it's a cue. It jumped out at me. And I said, oh my gosh, that has to be on purpose. Darren, did you pick up on any cues? Was there a vibe to this for you?
Well, I mean, chronologically in 95, we're a decade before episode 3 would come out. But
but Williams could have very easily quoted this. No,
he could have referenced himself. I definitely understand that. Honestly, with this score, for me, it felt like there was barely any music in this movie at all. And maybe that's just how it picked up to me. I like it would pop up here and there, maybe because I was trudging through it, but I couldn't recite 2 beats to you. I can't remember a single motif from this entire movie. I'm already blanking it. It's going out the other year. Sorry, guys.
Tristan,
we're looking at the credits and like, oh, it's John Williams. Like, I almost surprised me because it didn't grab me like I was expecting a 95 Williams score to. Like 2 years prior is Jurassic Park, and it's like melting my face off with motifs and dinosaurs.
Well, he definitely quotes his own JFK score at a certain point.
True.
And Tristan, outside of quoting JFK and Star Wars similarities, one way and the other, was there anything stand out about the score for you?
Just with Williams, there's so often times when you're like, oh, is this the Harry Potter theme? No. Is this the Superman theme? No. Is this the Star Wars main title? No. Is this from A New Hope? No. Dang. Is this from Close Encounters? No. Like there's so many times when Williams repeats himself, and the guy's in his 90s. Like there's like there lots of his themes can sound very similar to the point where like I will often
he has a Williams sound.
He has a Williams sound.
He absolutely does.
It's there. And so beyond just me listening and thinking of other Williams movies, not much is memorable. I couldn't hum a few bars for you other than realizing that I was like, oh, they're referencing the JFK score. That's neat.
Mm-hmm. So this is not a terribly successful score. That's fair enough. There are parts that don't come together, and it seems that and Darren, take us through. Like, this movie undoubtedly cost money to make.
Yes.
How much? And so, how much did they spend to make JFK, not including the marketing, and how much did they make back at the box office?
It's not, the numbers aren't looking good, guys. This was a $44 million budget, which $44 million in 95 is still a chunk of money.
Oh yes.
It made just under 14 million in US and Canada. This movie did not do well at all. That's like a quarter. It made a quarter of its budget back.
At least it got some Oscar noms out of it, but it didn't get any wins.
And it shows what we know, because Best Original Score was one of those nominations, which was puzzling. I now want to like go back and listen to it.
That seems, yeah.
But
that's when the Academy sees Williams' name and they go, oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Well, explain to me.
Kind of right.
Explain to me how it gets nominated for Best Original Screenplay, because I don't get any sense of a screenplay here where I'm like, yeah, this is the one. We're going to make a fortune on this movie and win tons of awards. Like, is there something I'm not seeing? Like, now I want to read the screenplay because I'm like, did Stone just like goof in the editing or something? Like,
that's what I'm wondering is like, maybe he just completely rewrote it in editing. But one thing that we have not talked about, which is insane, is Anthony Hopkins playing Nixon.
Yeah. And he got accolades for it. He got accolades an Oscar nomination.
Anybody else notice that as the movie went on, we started hearing Hopkins' voice more and more? Like he was getting exhausted. Yes.
No, you said it right the first time.
both is right.
Yeah, both are right. Both is right. Yeah,
both is right.
Well,
both are right.
Yeah, you have that,
yes.
But also, I mean, I'm looking at the accolades for the nominations as well, and we have to talk about Joan Allen as almost like Nancy Reagan, not
Pat Nixon.
the same first lady. As Pat Nixon,
buddy.
Again, also stealing every scene she's in. Like, that was a more interesting character to watch than Nixon himself for a lot of the time, really. Like, because at least she had a bit of a bead on like what she was trying to do. And like the scene where she takes him back after he goes back into politics, I was like, is she going to take it back? I was unsure about it. Like, the way she was acting was strong enough. I mean, I'm assuming so, because I can't imagine America voting in a divorced president, but in the 70s. But I think she was great in this.
So Hopkins, I didn't find anything particularly wonderful about the performance, but I'll lay that at Stone's feet because of the way the film is structured and how exhausted I was by the time we got to the end. It felt more like he was indicating somebody. Like, let's take a look at Val Kilmer playing that perceived figure of Jim Morrison. I lost Kilmer many times in that. I love Kilmer's performance in that film. I never really lost Hopkins here. Hopkins was there. There are a couple of standout scenes. Like
there's a few scenes. I wouldn't say 100% never lost, but then it would be like, oh, I'm watching a biopic. Like, well,
I think that Hopkins was, for lack of a better term, he was the sexy choice at the time. I think that he wasn't the best choice necessarily. Who was? Don't know. Honestly, don't know.
Apparently, Stone offered it to a lot of different people. Warren Beatty and I think Jack Nicholson were his top two choices. And those would have been very different movies.
Those would have been very, very different movies. I think that it would have been interesting to see somebody else. I agree with praising Joan Allen. I think she definitely had a sense of character, who she was, and there was a definite sense of, an arc with her. But what I come back to is, according to the Wikipedia page, the esteemed magazine Entertainment Weekly ranked Nixon number 40 on their list of the 50 best biopics ever. I don't know if I've seen 50 biopics total.
It's not quite a category I'm chomping at the bit on Blockbuster for.
But I feel like I probably know more than 49 others that I would have enjoyed more than Nixon, including The Doors, obviously. But, brass tacks, here we are rounding third. I think we've all been pretty clear about the shortcomings of the film and the few things that worked for it. And we're here at the Lance Reddick section, where anybody tuning in for the first time, we take Lance Reddick, and in honor of that tremendous actor's memory, we find a role for Lance Reddick within the broader context of the film. We recast him in. It's no reflection on an actor or actress that is in the film, but we put Lance Reddick in there. So Darren, I'll give it to you first. Where do you see Lance Reddick in this? Where would you drop him in?
I would put him as I don't remember the character's name, but the head of the CIA, because he gets that monologue when Nixon goes to visit his office and kind of spell out, like, if I'm going down, you're going down. Like, basically, I know I'm untouchable, and I'm basically going to openly blackmail you as we have this conversation. And I would have loved to see that portrayed with his delivery. I think that would have been great.
I like that choice. I like it a lot. Tristan, where do you see Mr. Reddick?
Again, like as we were talking about, this takes away nothing from what the individual who we're replacing has done, but I think he would have killed it as H.R. Haldeman. I think James Wood did a fantastic job and stole the scene, everything that it was in.
That was my backup guess.
But I truly believe that Reddick could be that person who was there to protect the president, but also knew what he was doing. Like, I love those scenes, or that scene, I should say, between J.T. Walsh and James Woods, when they had a very honest conversation about, quote unquote, the old man. You could tell that Haldeman was pragmatic about the president while still supporting the president. And I think Reddick would be able to walk that line as well.
Interesting. We all wind up with a different role, because I would have given him the role of John Dean, the White House counsel who goes to testify in front of Congress. I would have bought him in that role very much. I think he could have carried it through. David Hyde Pierce. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
And I thought Pierce did a fine job. Obviously, usual qualifiers and everything. But I could see Reddick giving the air of somebody who's just unable to go through with his mission statement of, just lie as much as you're a lawyer. You don't need to tell the truth. This is attorney-client privilege right here. And the lawyer saying, I don't know if it really works that way. I could see Reddick pulling that role off.
Yeah, the scene where he's like, you want me to write this all down with my signature below it. Like, that scene, that would be
tasteful. That's such a fascinating thing. I want you to frame yourself. Okay? Right. All right, thanks.
Please give me the evidence.
I don't know.
And he's like, I'll get right on that.
Yeah.
Chief.
Let me put that together for you.
Cut to scene of giving testimony in the inquiry committee.
Yeah. Well, here we are then. We've gone through our thoughts. We've gone through Lance Reddick's role in here. We're coming to our ratings. Gentlemen, do you exonerate the film Nixon with a high rating, or do you convict it to the lowest of the lows with a lower rating? Tristan, we will start with you.
I don't need to go into a lengthy explanation. I feel like I've explained myself pretty well from the beginning. None of us were being coy. None of us were trying to hide our true feelings. I give this 2 stars. 2 stars, I think, is a bad film. 2.5 is a mediocre film. This is a bad film. There's a reason why people still talk about JFK, even though I had my issues with JFK. There's a reason why people talk about JFK and they don't talk about Nixon. All the reasons that we talked about, all the reasons that we discussed. I don't care how many critics or reviewers said it was riveting. It's a mess. It's just an absolute mess.
You misread it. They meant you had to be riveted to your seat, not to leave before the film was over.
You're right.
So,
I need to read better.
Come on
Maybe
now.
if we made a D-box version of Nixon, so you're shaking in your chair at every pivotal moment, then you might at least stay awake.
That would be something. That would be something. I really struggle because there's a part of me that wants to give this a 1, but won't, because a 1 is a much lower rating than this film warrants, because there are scenes where, like, if you picked that scene out and showed it to somebody, they would say, "Oh no, let me watch it. You can't be right." And then they would watch it and find out I was. So I too will end with 2 stars. And Darren, that kicks it off to you. How many stars do you give Nixon?
Yeah, I'm also going to give it 2 stars. I think, like you said, John, it's not a 1. That would mean everybody failed in the making of this movie, and that's not true. We had a great discussion just last hour about a lot of great performances and a lot of, just firelight, I guess. We talked about that quite a bit, but it's just the sum of the parts did not come together. And it's not memorable, not enough to rewatch really. And it's really long. It's a long movie. It did not, but like you said, Tristan, I don't know where the 90-minute heart of it is. I think you'd get a whole different beast if you tried to cut it down. It just kind of is what it is.
Well, speaking of is what it is, we're going to be moving on to another historical biopic. This one going even further into the past. We've been in the 60s. We've been mired in the 60s and 70s with Oliver Stone up to this point. But I think we're going a wee bit earlier with our next choice. Darren, what are we going to be looking at next week?
Well, for short films, just kidding. We're going to 2004's Alexander as we round out our Oliver Stone biopics here on Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.